All right, like I said, today is our very last chapter of the entire semester, and it's pretty short. It's only 25 slides, or a couple less, because the last couple slides we talk about the work. But it is on animal structure and function. And the structural organization of animals are all the same for all animals. Life is characterized by a hierarchy of organization. In animals, individual cells are grouped into tissues. Of course, there are some organisms that are just made of one cell, and that's okay. But humans are grouped this way, as are most other animals. Cells are grouped into tissues. Tissues combine to form organs. Organs are organized into organ systems, and they all work together. Organ systems make up the entire organism. Good morning, Marcos. So the cellular level, this is just an example. One muscle cell, the tissue, cells, a bunch of cells come together and make up a tissue. This is cardiac tissue. A bunch of cardiac tissue make up an organ. In this case, it's the heart. Organs and tissues working together makes up a system, the circulatory or cardiovascular system. And then you have an entire organism. Cardiovascular and the circulatory system work with the respiratory system to bring oxygen into our body and expel carbon dioxide. There's always a function. So form-fits function. Analyzing biological structure gives us clues about what it does and how it works. So we can study the heart all day, and every single structure within that heart is shaped and formed a certain way to optimize its function and to help it function in the best way possible. Biologists distinguish anatomy from physiology. Now, this is a whole another class if you want to take it next year. You get to dissect a lot of things in anatomy and physiology. But anatomy is the study of the structure of an organism's parts, and then physiology is the study of the function of those parts. So you have a heart, the structures, you have the atria, the ventricles, all the blood vessels, the coronary artery, the musculature. And then each of those has a separate function. And of course, they all have a coordinated function to work together to pump blood and get oxygen to the rest of our body. Cell is the basic unit of all living organisms. We went over cells, individual cells, way back in chapter 4, I think. In almost all animals, including humans, cells are grouped into tissues. A tissue is an integrated group of similar cells that perform a specific function. And animals have 4 main categories of tissue. Epithelial tissue, also known as epithelium, you can see it referred to both ways. It covers the surface of the body. It lines all of our organs and cavities. And there are multiple types. There's like 7 or 8, oh, well, according to this picture, 9 different types of epithelial tissue. And if you take anatomy, you'll study the individual types. But for now, you just have to know that epithelial tissue is one of the 4 major types of tissues found in animals, in our bodies. Connective tissue. The structure of connective tissue is correlated with its functions. It's main function is to bind and support other tissues. And as you can see, there are several different types of connective tissue. We'll go over a couple of them. But for the most part, connective tissue is one of the four main types. And its main job is to bind or support the rest of our body. There's loose and fibrous connective tissue. There's adipose tissue, which are fat cells. There's blood. Blood is considered a connective tissue. Cartilage, our ears are made of cartilage. And bone. And there's different subcategories underneath all of these, but as you can see, there's a wide range of connective tissue inside your bodies. Muscle tissue, there's three types. Skeletal. Skeletal muscles is when you flex, that's your skeletal muscle. It is under voluntary control most of the time. You get to move all of your muscles voluntarily. You tell them what to do. Smooth muscle is involuntary. It lines your organs, like your esophagus. Once you chew food and then you swallow it, you don't have to consciously tell your body to move that food to your stomach and throughout the rest of your digestive system. Your smooth muscle does that for you. And then cardiac muscle, also involuntary. You don't have to tell your heart to beat. That's not a conscious decision. It is involuntary. It does it by itself. If it doesn't, then you're in trouble. Nervous tissue makes communication of sensory information possible. It's found in your brain and spinal cord, and it consists of a network of neurons. You have neurons all throughout the rest of your body connected to your brain and spinal cord, sending messages all of the time. And the basic unit of nervous tissue is the neuron or nerve cell. And there's different parts to a neuron. When you do your lab this week and in your lab practical next week, that picture is going to be fairly important. The nerve cell has a lot of branches, dendrites, it has the cell body, and then the big long tail is called the axon. The axon's covered with a myelin sheath, makes messages get sent faster. An organ consists of two or more tissues packaged into one working unit that performs a specific function. So examples include the heart, liver, stomach, brain, small intestines. So your stomach is an organ, but it's made of different combinations of those four main tissues. There's smooth muscle tissue, like I said, to digest your food by itself. There's loose connective tissue, there's nervous tissue, there's blood cells, there's epithelial cells. So just in the stomach alone, those are 5 different tissues that work together to make up the stomach. And they each have a different function within that organ to help it function properly. Organ systems, teams of organs work together and perform vital body functions. Like I said, the cardiovascular system and the respiratory system work together, your heart and your lungs, to bring in oxygen, and then your heart pumps your blood to push that oxygen to the rest of your body. It also works the other way, where carbon dioxide comes back to your heart and then back out your lungs. Exchanges with the external environment. Every organism is an open system, continuously exchanging chemicals and energy with its surroundings to survive. An animal's size and shape affect its exchanges with the surrounding environment. How do we do this? We breathe. Oxygen and carbon dioxide are two elements or chemicals or compounds that we need to exchange between our insides and the outside of us. Animals with complex body forms face the same basic problems because every cell must be bathed in fluid, which is what our blood does for us. Our blood is our fluid that bathes all of our cells. Every single cell needs a blood supply because it needs oxygen, and blood brings that oxygen. They also need to have access to resources from outside the environment. That is what our lungs are for. Our lungs bring in oxygen, get rid of carbon dioxide, which is a waste product from our cells. Complex animals have evolved extensively folded or branched internal surfaces that maximize surface area for exchange with the immediate environment. Besides the lungs, we actually have two more places in our bodies that do this for us, that exchange resources with the outside environment. So our digestive system is highly branched and folded to increase surface area. So our body absorbs as many nutrients as it can and vitamins from our food. Our respiratory system is our lungs. It's highly branched. And the branches add surface area so we get as much oxygen as we can and get rid of as much carbon dioxide as we can. And then our urinary system, which is a system that most people don't even think about. But that is the system that maintains water balance within our bodies. You've heard we're made of 70% water. Well, the kidneys is what maintains this, where we have enough water and nutrients and electrolytes in our fluid, our blood. And it's where our urine is produced, so we get rid of excess water. Sometimes there can be too much. And it is highly branched to take advantage of that process. Homeostasis is the body's ability to stay relatively unchanged internally, that is, even when the world around it changes. And homeostasis is different from the process of hemostasis, which is the formation of a blood clot. So you got to make sure you're saying and spelling it right. Homeostasis. Negative feedback. Most mechanisms of homeostasis depend on a principle called negative feedback, in which there is a set point, and our bodies are always trying to maintain that point. Body temperature is the typical example you use when you talk about negative feedback. Our internal body temperature is approximately 98.6. Some people run a little bit hotter, some people run a little bit lower, but 98.6 is the human average. And our bodies work to maintain that average, that set point. If we get too cold, we shiver. And when we shiver, our muscles generate heat to bring our body temperature back up to that set point. When we're hot, we sweat. When we sweat, as our sweat evaporates, it actually cools us down. That's why we sweat. Our body is trying to bring us back to that set point. So negative feedback always has a set point. It's always trying to get back to that middle point. There's also something called positive feedback. It's a little bit less common, but it happens, in which there is an end goal and the process keeps intensifying until the end goal is met. Childbirth is a typical example of positive feedback. A woman's body sends her uterus contractions. Her brain tells her uterus to keep contracting, keep getting more and more intense until the baby pops out. So that's the end goal. Sneezing is actually another positive feedback. You can feel sneezes and it kind of builds up, and then you sneeze. And the sneeze is that end goal. And then your body goes back to normal. So negative feedback has a set point that always tries to come back to that set point. Positive feedback keeps intensifying until an end goal is reached, and then everything can go back to normal.